So, we've had the incident, we've recovered the vehicle, and it now lands at the repairer's door. So, to tell us more about this, welcome to the stage, please, Gio Adamo of Zago Insurance, Dave Sargeant, Gemini, and Erika Woollacott of Fix Auto Mid Devon and Newton Abbott. Welcome. Thank you, for joining us. It's all very quiet at the moment, isn't it? Very withdrawn. Right, so let's go. You've just heard what the guys have just said. All three of them have left the room. Were they right? The repair's the easy bit. Dave, over to you.
Well, first off, I think I've said this a million times, but I'm a massive petrol head, so I can't stand electric vehicles, so I'll just get that out there. So don't ask me if I'm driving one, ever. So that's one part of it. But change is inevitable and they're here to stay, so we've got to embrace that. We've got to deal with it. And from what everyone said this morning, training's a huge part of this. And interestingly, they've mentioned a couple of times the average repair cost very similar. I don't think it is at all. Now, if you invest in properly in training and putting the right people, training everyone, putting all the investment into have all the equipment necessary to do everything on electric vehicles, a huge cost. If you started a new shop today, you'll be throwing 30, 40 grand easily to get just the bits of tooling required. So I think the insurers and everyone paying the bill needs to look at that. It's not just about the average repair cost. Repairing the car, as I've said before, body-wise is the same proposition, apart from you've got the complexity of turning the battery off or doing something with the battery, or where parts of the electrics are in the car, dealing with that. So you've got to understand that right from the word go, that there is an app available, Euro Recovery app, which is brilliant, free to everybody, which is almost like a Thatcher method, showing you where everything is on each vehicle. Every manufacturer's got to produce that data, unlike methods, which they don't. So, that's really important for people to grab hold of. MG is one that was mentioned earlier. We've had some nightmares with MG already, with methods. They just don't exist. No one's really challenged them to get the methods for these cars. So it is a totally different proposition. I think standard body shops that fill their car parks and fill their shops, when Jeff, whether it's scaremongering or people feel that, but if you did have a fire and he's saying keep it away from the building, keep it away from any other vehicle, let's see how that's possible, to be honest. Unless you park it down the street, I don't know what you're going to do with it, because body shops aren't like that, are they? You've got a car park full of cars, you've got a workshop full of cars, so I don't know how the practicalities of that would work. And even what we've got a really, really good detailed training team in Gemini, right the way through from the apprenticeships, and the young people in the apprenticeships are taught to level 3 straight away, but all the other people are, being trained to that element as well. But even that, looking at if there was a fire, and it may be a very small potential of this happening, to have one of these fire extinguishers that's supposed to be an electric vehicle, who's going to stand there in that heat for that long till it hasn't gone out, and then you throw the fire extinguisher and leg it, or you've got this blanket that you can roll over the top, and all that's doing is holding the fire in place. Well, practically, if that's in one bay and you're working on it, that might work. If you put slave wheels on it and rolled it into the spray booth, how are you going to do it there? So there's lots of things we need to think about, and I don't think with all our shops, every shop will be capable of doing all that to that level. So I think we're going to have shops within our group that are 100% capable of doing everything on an EV, and the others don't do it until that volume increases, or wherever that volume goes. I don't know, it might go to hydrogen, might have other things, and even though 2030 isn't that long away, but that's just stopping the production. I drive around Wolverhampton town centre and you won't see many EVs in the terrace streets. So I think petrol and diesel are going to be around for a long, long time. That will be the bulk of our work for a long, long time. So until EVs reach a point where it's saturation, I think we're just going to have to do certain sites that can deal with everything. I didn't really answer your question, Mark, but I thought I'd start with something like that.
Guys, back in the room. No, but you're seeing it from a national repair solution, aren't you? In terms of you saying potentially you could divvy up the network. Erika, I'll come to you then. Yes, 2 sites. Devon, dare we say, a little bit more rural in places than what Gemini sites might be. So, what is your kind of current exposure to EVs? What's the business mix, and what's the approach you guys are taking?
In reality, we're not seeing very many to repair. We've had 12 in the last 12 months full EV, so really minimal amount, and yet we're having to be geared up and prepared for whatever comes through the door because we have no idea what's going to come through the door. Some of the vehicles that we're seeing out and about on the road we've never seen of, heard of, have any information of, but we've got to be geared up and ready to deal with them. Reality is that we're not paying our staff enough for the training and the risks that they are now undertaking. For an example, we're paying our cleaner the same amount as we're paying some of our skilled technicians. We just don't have the budget at the moment to be able to invest in those staff, and we need to because we need to retain them. We're training them, we're upskilling them, we're giving the ability to deal with all of these things. We're also giving them the opportunity to be poached even more because of the skill shortage that we have. So yeah, it's really challenging.
Lots of different challenges that come, different angles of challenges.
Absolutely.
Gio, coming at it from a kind of engineering perspective, and you and I have, briefly caught up on this, but Zego, kind of new kid on the block in terms of insurer, different kind of approach, more fleet type stuff, but again, what are you seeing? What's kind of the headspace for Zego in terms of electric vehicles?
We've seen a massive growth. We are an insurer of taxi drivers. So, if you will, the vast majority of passenger vehicles out there are probably used by taxi drivers, usually plug-in or hybrid vehicles. We've got a client on board now that is going full electric by the end of next year, rolling their stock at the rate of 200 new EV vehicles a month. And they've recently made acquisitions of another electric vehicle taxi company. So we're seeing huge growth internally. The way that we sort of approach electric vehicles, it's pretty much the same. I had a fairly short conversation with our underwriters. I said, "Okay, so what's the approach to electric vehicles?" And they went, "It's just a car." There is a little bit. It is a little bit more complex than that. Of course, you've got third-party considerations regarding the charger, the cabling, trip hazards, and so on and so forth. And then you've also got the sheer performance of some of these vehicles. As you know, there are certain models out there that are quicker than any high performance, or even hypercar. So you have to take that into consideration. But on the other side of that, you've also got the fact that a lot of these vehicles have got some of the best and most up-to-date crash avoidance technology, ADAS systems, so on and so forth. So they're mitigating their potential for crash. So we take sort of a fairly holistic approach to those types of vehicles. But the one thing that we do is communicate and try and talk to our repair network that handle those vehicles so that they know exactly what's coming through the door.
Okay, good stuff. So, Dave, I'll come back to you in terms of a little bit more of the detail, I suppose, and how you are gearing the business up. How do you kind of scale the business? Is it very different from site to site? I.e., is you see more EVs coming into certain sites, depending on the demographic, geographical region, etc.? And how do you kind of, put that into a work mix, I suppose, across the group?
Yeah, I mean, there is, certain areas that we are seeing more EVs, but it is small. Even, what Erika said, it's small percentages across the group anyway, but there are certain sites that seem to, generate more EV repairs. But we've gone back to, obviously the new British standard came out early in the year. I don't know how many people have actually grasped that, because the old British standard is very old. It didn't have all this technology is really shot on, hasn't it, the last few years before that standard was written. So even the areas of ADAS were very grey and woolly in it. The mandating of technicians in that wasn't really there. And the new standard talks about the electric vehicle and having a dynamic estimate completed at the start of the repair. So the VDA going out before he even goes out to that car, needing to speak to a level 3 technician, trained technician, for them both to look at that vehicle to decide what to do with it before you touch it. So in that British standard, John and his team have put that across our group since Christmas. Been working really hard with the IMI to get it into the group. And we've adhered to that standard 100%. So I think we've got 4 out the 32 sites left to do. So that process has been embedded into the business now. And we've got a central claims department. The central claims guys all know, are aware of what a BEV is and what challenges that could have. We don't have the challenges I think Jeff was speaking about. We don't go to a recovery at the side of the road accident, do we? Generally in ours, they're still drivable. I think the terms drivable, non-drivable, we all speak about, had lots of non-drivers or whatever. We need drivers, non-drivers and electric cars because they're going to be totally different. And I think the cycle time is going to be massively different. So because you've got to change the process. So every one of our shops now has got a dedicated process to deal with electric vehicle. So when they first come in, how they already know what's coming, what we're going to do to that vehicle, that we're protecting everybody on the site. So it's alerted to everyone that's an electric vehicle and the complex of it. And then they say, do this dynamic estimate with a level 3 trained technician. But before you power these vehicles off, you've got to think, we've got to repair this. So this car's got to move around the shop. How are we going to move it around the shop when it's turned off, and the handbrake's on? How does that work? So having slave wheels with hubs in, so you can move them, or you're putting them on skates. And then you've got the challenge of a pitted floor on a spray booth. How are you pushing that into the spray booth? So it's all these things you've got to think about. How are we going to manoeuvre this vehicle around the shop? Or we're not moving the car. Are we going to bring the spray booth to the car? We've got to think of all the ways round to protect everyone, but to also repair the car safely. But it is different. Mm-hmm. But and maybe it might be a brilliant opportunity for us to change our whole model in the shop. So we treat every car like this. We might find an even better process than we've got now if we treated every car like this. Not baking an electric vehicle. Paint technology is dramatically improved in the last 4 or 5 years as well. So greater paint technology that needs less baking or less temperature or no temperature. All those things I think will play into our hands. It's an opportunity, I think, to change your whole process. But I think at this moment in time, because they're few and far between, everyone in the business has got to understand it's a different thing. And really, as much as I hate to say it because I'm a petrol head, the EV driver is a VIP. It's a VIP because the car's a VIP. It's a completely different prospect. And I'm not scaremongering because I'm not like that. I don't like scaremongering. But you have got to treat that customer and that car completely different to protect your staff and your business and the customer.
Interesting. And Erika, would you, kind of align with what Dave's saying there in terms of how it changes the process? So average, you're seeing 1 a month. Is it kind of, alarm bells ringing and, the red carpet's rolled out when an EV comes your way? And again, how is that dealt with from a customer perspective, i.e., courtesy car wise, are they then put in an EV vehicle if available? Those kind of challenges?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Dave said. It's very similar in our business. We've undertaken the Thatcham EV Ready certification, so everybody in our business now has an EV awareness. I think it's really important. You can't be everywhere. You have to rely on everybody within your business to take responsibility and understand, be respectful of what they're dealing with, because without scaremongering everybody, there is obviously that danger, and it's a danger that you don't want to have to face within your business on a daily basis. So they have to have that respect for it. In terms of the customer journey, We haven't been asked to provide any EVs to customers as courtesy vehicles yet. We do have one. Currently, it's more of a drama than a benefit. I'm hearing lots of stories from colleagues within the industry that customers don't understand. They will just drive the vehicle until it runs out of battery and then phone the garage and say, please, can you come and recover us? We're stuck. So there's a huge amount of cost implication and all those other things that follow as well. It's just complicated. And the industry was complicated enough already. And yeah, it's just trying to have that communication with everybody and understand everybody's challenges because they're all different.
Yeah, sure. Great stuff. Gio, come back to you. So from an engineering perspective, electric vehicle kind of lands, claim comes through. What are the differences that you look for from your side when it comes to, assessing repair estimates or anything along those lines, engineering the vehicle?
From an insurance perspective, obviously the vast majority of our work now is done remotely via image and so on. But I think Victoria absolutely nailed it when she said that communication is absolutely key. At the point of EFNOL, the amount of information that we need to take now is so much more critical than it used to be. Had an accident, I've run into somebody, and that's about all that gets passed on to the poor repairers who then get a car that's battered and don't know which end of the vehicle to repair first. At this point now with the electric vehicles, and we're seeing it with our clients now where I wouldn't go so far as to say we're interrogating them, but we are pushing the limits with the client to make sure that we absolutely know where the vehicle was hit, the level, the extent of the damage, airbag deployment, number of people in the vehicle, whether there's any kind of secondary damage, and we're even asking questions like, was there any impact to the underside of the vehicle, for obvious reasons, which Thatcham pointed out earlier, the gents from Thatcham, where you get an impact to the underside of the car. Obviously, you've got this huge battery which can be compromised due to an impact. So we're taking all that kind of information down, and then as a result of that, then obviously we can pass that information onto the repairers and to the networks so that they know what they're dealing with. And as far as I'm concerned, it's absolutely key. We can't have a situation anymore where, especially with a heavy impact to an electric vehicle, where you just turn around and either get it recovered, send it to Jeff and his team to just pick a vehicle up. We've got to give them more detail and more information. And the more information that you have, the better choices that you make and the decisions that you make keep people safe and hopefully get the car repaired in the right way and get it returned back to the customer.
Does it change the way you work, Dave, with sort of supply chain partners at the moment, stroke going forward? Do you see it being significantly different, how you might deal with partners? Whether that be, supply chain up or down tier?
There has been changes, and certainly insurance providers, it's different, because they see the same challenges that we do, and they want their network to be safe. They don't want to hand a vehicle off to the people who can repair it properly and safely. So that side, I think, needs to be stronger and stronger, and we, communicate between the parties is really important. The things we're finding, like say MG, no methods, or MG, if you take the key away and lock it in the safe box while it's when you come back, the car thinks it's been stolen and turns the key off. It's things like that. The challenges we have, you've got to keep passing the communication backwards and forwards so they know what they're underwriting. Tesla's a great example. I've got a lovely story for a Tesla if anyone wants to repair one. We don't anymore. We repaired one in one of our shops, really small damage to the quarter panel. And we shut the vehicle down, did everything we were supposed to do. Got inside the quarter panel, unplugged the little diode off the speaker, popped the dent out, repaired it, plugged it back in, turned it back on, wouldn't come back to life properly. Tesla said it had blown a fuse, which was £1,500, and there's no one but them to do it, and they could do it in 6 weeks' time. So I said, I think I'm bored of Teslas, really. No, I don't want to repair any Teslas at this moment in time. I think they've made the market really difficult, to be honest, for repairers. Even approved repairers I know have had their challenges with them on delays in parts and all the things. And the build quality is awful anyway, so why you'd want one, I don't know, to be honest. There's Tesla in the room. No. Just doing my PR for Tesla.
Yeah, it's going really well
Trying
here,
to
Dave.
drive it
Thanks for
down.
that.
Trying to drive it down. Anyway, yeah, so, but, you know, things like that have to be communicated back because, you know, we're a good repairer and we made a mistake there. You know, apparently you're supposed to cover every camera. I think there's 15 cameras on the car. You've got to cover every one with a piece of masking tape. So, yeah, I ain't got the time or energy to think about it, really. But all this stuff, you know, it is a communication, two-way thing. And I mean, that's a mistake. That's a costly mistake, but it's not a dangerous mistake. So the danger is you make a dangerous mistake, isn't it? You know, which we don't want to do, obviously. And we don't want to wait for an absolute disaster to happen in a body shop for everyone to take notice, really. So seriously, you know, the insurers and the repairers definitely need to stay very close together and make sure we're doing, you know, we're both doing the right things for you know, the customer and for ourselves, really.
Erika, you know, we've heard a lot about kind of people skills training, which is absolutely where we should be talking. But from a kind of product and equipment perspective, not necessarily naming any names, but does it change what you need available to you in the shop, you know, to have at your kind of disposal when these vehicles come in?
Yeah, absolutely. All sorts of things. So not just equipment, things down to like first aid training. So we had somebody come on site and do our first aid at work training, and we asked them to specifically tailor part of the training into electrocution so that our first aiders are able to deal with that. Yes, we've had to invest in all sorts of equipment. We will have to continue to invest in all sorts of equipment because we still don't know what's coming. We're being asked to invest a lot into the EV world, but is that going to be the solution to all our issues? Are we going to have other powers that we're going to have to invest in relatively soon too? And it's really difficult to know what the future holds.
Don't start talking hydrogen. That's next year's event. Gio, come back to people on your side. So on the engineering side of the world, where are those people coming from now? Traditionally, there's kind of been a bit of a path through a body shop into a kind of insurer, dare I say, into an engineering outfit. Is that still the same route, or are we looking for different people in the industry now with different skill sets?
No, I think from my perspective and on a personal note, on all the engineers that I've employed in the past, I've always tried to go down the route of bringing people up through the trade, the industry. You can't teach a lot of the skills as an engineer if you haven't been there fixing the cars, whether you be a panel beater, whether you be a mechanic. Once you've learnt those skills over a number of years, that gives you a wealth of experience that no one can teach that to someone that's never done the job. Having said that, we have brought on people through the claims department that understand the insurance industry and understand claims, and then they've become sort of total loss engineers, if you will, sort of just doing the basic valuations and then having the discussions with the policy holders, and then gone on to sort of do courses and so on. And they've done really well. And I've got to say, there's a few that I know that I remember very well that have done fantastic, and they've built themselves great careers. But from my perspective, you can't beat someone who has got the experience of having been there and done it on the shop floor.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair enough. Dave, mention of total losses there. EVs, again, you know, a small percentage of the work at the moment. Are they landing on your doorstep and then being written off, or is the process in place at the moment where actually they're not even coming to you?
The percentage is so small at the moment, it's hard to say, really. But I don't think we're not seeing majorly heavily damaged EVs. You know, the one Jeff spoke about where the battery was damaged, I haven't heard of any claims that we've had battery damage or it's been total lost because of that. So I'm not really seeing, a huge amount of that.
Interesting data set. I think Paul's well on the case with that now, aren't you? Having had a few conversations from this morning. So it'll be interesting to see those figures that are sort of starting to show themselves. And again, that will be very much based on volume of repair. It's so difficult at the moment to understand it. Erika, other areas in the repair mix that kind of the audience needs to consider? Where else is your kind of head in terms of building for the future, understanding that volume, that tipping point, that capacity? How far out are you projecting and what is that projection as the business?
It changes all the time. I think the one thing that everybody needs to have for a sustainable future is agility. You need to be prepared for whatever is going to come, and we don't know what that's going to be. You just have to roll with what you've got and be aware and train as much as you can. I'd like to see some sort of route to the work providers channeling their work for EVs into repairers that are geared up to deal with them and not just anybody. I have quite an issue with that. The single sites, the one-man bands, the people that just don't understand what they're being faced with shouldn't be being given these vehicles to repair for sure. And I'd like to see some sort of legislation for that, to be honest. But
we're going down the route of legislation, sure. That's got to be a sign it's time for lunch. Always taught, never stand between an audience and their lunch. It's 1:10. That's been a fine innings from these three individuals, Gio, Dave and Erika. Big thank you to these people for joining us.